Hey, this is Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com, and today we're going to go over how to set up chains the traditional ways and some other ways you may not have seen that can help your training. So let's get to it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to set up chains in traditional fashion. So as you can see, the chains are at a certain distance off of the ground. So we have about one link on the ground per side. So hopefully this should make sense that the styles of chain setups that are like this don't work. You got too much chain still at the bottom, right? And you got all the chain at the top, but you only got one side. So by using a draping system like this, now when we do this, we have, if we're counting both sides, we have 80 pounds of chain here, 0 at the bottom. 80, 0. 80, 0. So if you guys are setting up your chain for traditional fashion, when you pick it up out of the rack, you want about one link off the ground, and that's going to make it optimal as far as the setup is concerned. So let's see a couple of squats in this traditional fashion. So as you can see, we have one link on the ground each side. That's going to give a little bit of sway and a little bit of stability. If we have it to where it's like this, then it's not going to be correct. We need just a little bit on the ground, but not too much. Okay? So now as he squats slowly, we're going to see the chain is going to be completely out there. Now it's 0. Now as he comes up, 20, 40, 60, 80. That's how it works. The next one is a suspended chain. So now obviously we use a much thinner chain. It doesn't have to be as strong, but you still want to use probably 1/4 inch chain. That's going to be strong enough to hold probably close to 1,000 pounds. I've dropped about 1,100 on these chains and they've been totally fine. So as you can see, this is going to allow him to get under the bar. So he's going to have to start the squat from the bottom. Now there's a couple of good key reasons that you want to use chains instead of catch pins in the rack. One, as you can see, the chain moved into the position he wants to squat. If that's sitting on a rack, he can't move it as easy. He's going to have to slide it and it's always going to be crooked. This will center him to the bar every time. So a chain has a little bit more life as far as oscillation and allowing center of gravity to be selected properly when you crawl under it. So I like it way better than pins. And to go get chains of this nature is not very expensive. So as you can see, we can crawl under here, we can do a squat from the bottom. Good. Okay, so we have other videos on why we should use this. You should go watch them, but I'll give you some other tips. One, if Teddy's in here squatting by himself and he does this particular squat, he doesn't have to worry about failing. He can come up, he says he's going to do a 3 rep max. He got 1, don't do stupid shit, 2, and now he misses. And down, good. He's got a built-in spotter. So now we can do a squat really, really heavy without having a bunch of issues worrying about if we got side spots or anybody to spot us. This would probably have saved a lot of people on gymfuckery.com from getting smashed. The next way you can use this is from the top of the bar. Now we don't do this very often, but it is a way we can use them. Now this way is going to have a lot of oscillation, but you have to be careful. You have to have a lot of chain, because if you start adding more and more weight, you're going to actually take away the ability of this thing to swing. So when we do this particular type of exercise, all we do is add chain. We don't add a chain and then weight, or obviously it's not going to do much because the weight's going to counterbalance itself. So as you can see, when he takes it out, it's going to be a little unstable because he's got 40 pounds wanting to oscillate. So you see now it barely touches the ground. Good. Now if you're a thicker guy, like me for example, it's not going to touch at all. So as it goes down, it's always going to stay in a sway. So as you can see, this thing is going to sway the whole time. It never touches the ground. This is a really hard way to bench because it's going to do this the whole time. And that's going to be hard to do. So if you only have chains, maybe you don't have a lot of hanging kettlebells or something like that, it's a good way to get chaotic training into your particular repertoire without having anything but chains. Alright, so now what we can do is utilize a chain only halfway up, or maybe even a little less than that. And what that's going to do is it's going to be 0, 0, then it's going to kick in at most people's sticking spot, which is going to be about halfway up. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you might have this sticking point, but if you think about it, if you train a lot of free weights, the most pressure and power you're going to develop is right off the chest. And then as you've got the weight moving in inertia, it's going to actually be lighter at the top, so you're getting less work. This is a way to kind of keep your car moving on the highway while applying the brakes, which is going to make you extremely strong at the top. So as you can see, I have very little chain at the very top. I have no chain here. So as I push up, now it's kicking in, and I'm going to have to push as hard as I can through the middle and the top, which is very unlike real weights. So this is a great way to use a contrasting style of train training where you're going to be pushing and you're going to have to really hit that sticking point in the middle. I would say probably 60–80% of you guys watching this, you're going to stick right here. That's where your sticking point's going to be, and this will train it. The next thing that we can use it for is adding weight or progression. Now, I do this a lot. You don't see a lot of people doing this, and I'll explain why. I think that when you're first doing a certain exercise at a particular rep, you're going to utilize most of your motor units that you're comfortable with utilizing. Then once the second and the third rep get heavier, you almost have to innervate more in new tissue. That's my theory. It's worked very well for me for multiple world records. Now I'll show it to you in action. So let's say I got a certain amount of weight on the bar, and I got two chain, okay? So 80 pounds of chain. So now I'm going to take it out. I've done my first rep with 80 pounds of chain. Now they're going to add it and make it 120. Now it's obviously going to be way harder. Now I'm almost at max. They're going to put another chain on. Now we're at 160. And I'm really going to have to push through that. The point is that it's really hard to do that with other types of weight, but when you do it with chain, it seems to react to your body way differently. So in closing, this is how you can use chains for all different kinds of things, why I think they need to be in every gym, both high school, college, pro teams, and private training centers. There's just no other way to really get that type of weight to react in a certain type of gravity that chains do. They oscillate, they sway, and they change in how much they weigh, both up and down, which I really, really like. The other reason I like them even maybe a little bit more so than bands is that they're indestructible. I can take these chains out in the parking lot, run them over with my truck, put them back in the gym, and they work fine. Bands tend to be a little bit more particular. They get pinched, they get cracked, they break, and they get to be a little bit more dangerous if they're not taken care of. And you can't keep them hooked up on the bar. I can let this thing sit here for 50 years and those chains are not going to be hurt. You let a band sit on this for 6–8 hours, the band tension is going to go down. So that's why I like chains if you're on a budget or if you're worried about your athletes tearing stuff up.